Hi there, friends. Welcome to Stampin' Piece Studio from Columbus, Ohio. I'm Mary Knabe. If you're a returning viewer, thanks for watching once again. And if you're new to this Facebook page, I welcome you and I hope you get lots of inspiration and helpful tips from today's live as well as all of the others. Before we start on today's project, I want to inform you that I do have an online class which will be held on November 29th. Information about that is on my blog / website, stampinpiece.com. And in that class, we're going to make 20 different cards in less than 2 hours. I know it sounds impossible, right? But it's not. And the cards all feature the Memories and More Berry Christmas card pack and the coordinating card bases and envelopes. So more information, how to register for that is on my blog, stampinpiece.com. If you missed my last Facebook Live, which was on Tuesday, the 7th, November 7th, I showed 5 ways to use our Simply Scored board to make creative, unique cards. And here's just a few of them. Can you see the lines there? I'm not sure how well it's coming through, but there are embossed lines on each of these, and I showed 5 different ways to make some really unique cards using a little bit of detail that we create, like this frame, from our Simply Scored scoring tool, our scoreboard. So you'll definitely want to check that out here in the video section, or wait just a couple days and it will be up on my blog and YouTube channel as well. Today, I'm going to show you some features of our Simply Scored scoring tool and board. And then I'm going to show you 2 different card making techniques that I think you're really going to love, made with our Simply Scored board. Okay, so I'm going to flip my camera around now, and while I'm doing that, please share this video or tag your friends in the comments and invite them to come see some creative inspiration and helpful tips today. Whoops, 1 second. Camera setup just moved on me a bit. Sorry. Okay, there we go. Okay, I'm going to push this back, put my glasses on. And the other day when I was demonstrating different card making techniques using the Simply Scored board, that doesn't want to stay up where I want it. It will have to do then, so sorry. I was using my old scoreboard. I've got it marked up. I'm missing the original stylus, so I have a replacement in there that I had. But I started thinking, well, I do have a brand new one that I can show you. So this is how it comes, okay? It's got the rulers on both sides, just a little above 12 inches. So that's nice for accommodating our 12-inch cardstock or designer series paper, those big pieces for perhaps scrapbook pages. And then it has a stylus here, okay? It has a fatter tip on the stylus and then a thinner tip. We tend to use the thinner one for cardstock, chipboard, heavier types of paper. The other one we tend to use for papers that are thinner or maybe a little more fragile, like DSP, scrapbook papers, vellum, things like that, okay? And then you can just fit it right back in here and it stays in place. And then here, because this is a brand new one, it's actually sealed shut, but I'm going to open it so you can see. So at the top of your Simply Scored board, there's this little compartment, and it doesn't want to, oops, I might have to do it on the back too. Yes, I do. No, I don't. Anyways, it's got this little scoreboard. It just lifts up and out, okay? So you just lift it up and out. So when you close it and push down, okay? So lift up from the back and open it like that. And then inside are some tiny little place markers. And these just fit right in our grooves. So for example, I score a lot of cardstock to cut card bases. So I'm often scoring at 4 1/4 and sometimes even 5 1/2 if I turn my cardstock in the opposite direction for the card bases. So I might have one that's there. Or maybe I'm making a special project and it requires me to score. It's not that hard to get in, but for some reason my hands are real shaky today. 2 1/4 inches, I can move it. It just helps us keep our place and make sure that we're always going back to that same groove. And then the last thing I want to show you on here is it has a bunch of, let's see, 8 of these rubber stoppers on the bottom that are already built into the scoring tool, which is perfect for those of you who maybe are working on top of a kitchen table or perhaps a desktop with kind of a smooth, slippery surface that holds your scoring board in place. So now it is time for us to get into some card making. And I'm going to teach you 2 different techniques. Now, because that one's brand new and I really don't need it, I just opened it up for my demonstration purposes, I'm bringing it back in my old scoreboard that I've had like umpteen years and all that. So for the first card, I have a piece of 5 1/4, right? 5 1/4 by 4 inch basic white cardstock. And I'm simply going to score this at 1 inch intervals. Actually 3/4 inch intervals. We'll do 3/4. But on each side, I want to start in the middle. I find I like this technique better if I start in the middle and work my way out. So 5 1/4, half of that is, let's see, 2 1/2, 2 5/8, 2 5/8. So right here. So this might have been where I put that, one of those place markers. And for this, I'm going to use the large tip of my stylus because I want some really deep grooves. So I'm going to work right here at 2 5/8. And then I'm excuse me, going to move over 3/4 inch. Okay, so let's see, there's 1/4, 2/4, 3/4. And same thing. 1/4, 2/4, 3/4. 1/4, 2/4, whoops. 1/4, 2/4, 3/4. Okay. Then I'm going to flip it just because, yes, I can work, well, I'll show you. I typically tend to turn my cardstock 180 degrees because I feel like it's easier for me to score from this side. But to show you, I'm going to do it this way. So 1/4 inch, 2/4 inch, 3/4 inch, right? Let's see, I want to double check this. 1, 2, 3/4 inch, I was right. And then again, I'm going to go 1, 2, 3/4 inch, and one last time on this side, 1, 2, 3/4 inch. Oops. Okay. Now I'm going to turn it the opposite direction. Again, I want to start at the middle. So half of 4 inches is 2. So I'm going to make my first score line there. And then I'm going to scoot to the right, 3/4 inch, 1, 2, 3. And then 1, 2, 3/4 inch. And again, I can now work from the left side, but to make it easier for myself, I'm going to flip it to the right side. And I'm going to start from the middle again and work my way out to the edge. 1, 2, 3/4 inch, 1, 2, 3/4 inch. And I have that. Okay. So let's do some stamping on this. So this is called the Faux Tile Technique. You may have seen it before, or maybe you've seen it and haven't tried it. Maybe you haven't done it a long time. I'm here to show you how easy this is to make. So I'm using boho blue ink, and I'm using the 3 detailed snowflakes from the Sparkling Snowflakes stamp set. And I like to, when I'm stamping things randomly of different sizes, I like to start with the largest image first. I just kind of want to space them out a little bit. So I'm moving to different parts of my cardstock. And then I'm going to use the 2 smaller sizes, but when I'm stamping these, I'm going to stamp off first, okay? So stamp off and then stamp on. Stamp off and then stamp on. Stamp off, stamp on. And let's do one more time. Stamp off and stamp on. And then I'm going to do the same thing with the smallest snowflake. Stamp off and stamp on. Stamp off, stamp on. And the reason I'm doing the stamp off and stamp on is because I want a little bit lighter shade of the boho blue so that the largest snowflakes kind of draw your attention, are the most, they're kind of working as the focal points of my stamped areas. Now I have a little space left, and that's just bothering me a little bit, but I want it to kind of distinguish and it's okay to overlap them, but this time I'm going to stamp off twice and then stamp on. So I get an even lighter shade in those 2 places. I want to do one right here as well. And I like to make sure I go around all of the edges nicely. Whoops. There. And I'm finished with that. So now I think you can see why this technique is called the Faux Tile Technique, right? Now it almost looks like tiles on your wall or your floor or something like that, although I doubt any of us have snowflakes. But think of maybe like leaves or just a random pattern over a tile. So that's why we call this the Faux Tile Technique. Now let's put our card together. My card base is boho blue, and I started with 5.5 by 8.5 and scored it 4 1/4 on the long side. I'm going to put this on my card front. However, before I do that, I want to add some ribbon to the front. And I've chosen this sheer ribbon with the silver edge. What is it called? It is called sheer ribbon. Silver and white sheer ribbon. Okay. Now, some of you may have seen me do this before. I don't always wrap the ribbon all the way around and tie it or do a bow. Sometimes I just like to do this. I'm not using as much ribbon, and if I don't want the bow or the knot, this just makes more sense. And I never adhere my ribbon to the card front. The reason being, it's hard to get it straight. But if I just put some adhesive, on the back sides, and then just pull the end of my ribbon over on each end so I can get this kind of snug right across there, and then flip the second over. So now I'm ready to adhere this to my card front. One thing, when you're adding your adhesive, notice I'm trying to stay inside those score lines. That way I'm not going over them and smoothing them out. So I still have that nice deep groove line on the front. So I'll add this. And then I have another piece of basic white for the inside of the card base. And I'm just going to add a little decorative touch to the inside by stamping off a snowflake in the middle. Okay. And then the last thing I need to do is add a sentiment. So I've pulled from the same sparkling snowflake stamp set. I've pulled Let It Snow. And I know some of you aren't ready for the snow yet, but you know, it comes every year to a lot of us. So we just have to go with it. But now I'll be ready with a great card when I want to send somebody just a happy mail, a happy greeting in the winter. And I punch that with my 1.5 inch circle punch. And then I'm going to punch with my 1 3/4 inch, this sparkly silver paper. And let me tell you about this paper. This paper comes in both gold and silver. Get it out here. Okay, in both gold and silver. Now, you would not know this just by looking at it, but these are actually adhesive on the back, okay? So they are great, like if I would be die cutting letters or numbers, maybe I'm making an advent calendar, maybe doing letters for a scrapbook page or a collage, something like that, because then you can just die cut your letters, peel off the back, and stick them in place. So it makes it really easy for those purposes. So I'm going to use 2 dimensionals to hold my sentiment onto my silver sparkly paper. And for this purpose, I don't necessarily need to peel off the back, but I'm going to because it's there, right? So why waste it? I'm trying to get this straight, and it's hard because I'm trying to avoid looking over the top of it. There we go. But I wanted to give you a tip on how to pull the adhesive off of the back. And you just want to be very careful, and I just kind of take the tip of my piercing tool and just very lightly go over it in the same place. Just very lightly. I don't want to dig too deep. And then you're going to be able to pull up an edge. Okay, now you can see a little bit here, but if you're not going to see that little mark on the glitter side. Okay, even if I didn't already have it covered up with the sentiment. But that's how easy it is to, right about here. That's how easy it is to peel off. So it's really sort of like a convenience thing. You know, it's not necessary, but it is convenient. So I did buy a couple of those packs and really, really like it for the different reasons I shared. So there's our first card featuring the Faux Tile Technique. All right, Faux Tile Stamping Technique. And yes, I will be giving away this card, but I want to show you another card using the Faux Tile Technique. However, we're going to do a variation of what you just saw, okay? There's going to be a variation of what you just saw here. And so for this card, and this time I'll be using a stamp set from the annual catalog, the Artistically Inked. Okay, Artistically Inked. That's in the annual catalog. Let me get my Score Pal back in here. Now this time we're going to do things a little bit differently, okay? I want my little white marker. What happened to that? Here it is. We're going to score diagonal lines, all right? So this takes a little bit more effort, just because you have to pay a little bit more attention to where you are and where you're starting, things like that. So I'm going to put this, you know what, I'm going to put it right at the 6-inch mark, right here, 6-inch mark, because then I'll be right in the middle of the scoreboard. Now, if I'm off a little bit, I might be in the wrong groove down here at the bottom. So here's a tip. If I want to start at the 6-inch mark, I'm just going to use this little white marker. If you have the little plastic markers for up here to mark your place, you can do that. But then I'm going to take my stylus and go straight down past where my cardstock will be. And in that space, I also want to make a little mark. So that way I always know I'm in the right place, okay? It just helps. It makes it a little quicker if you put the mark there. If you don't, what you want to do is, say I'm starting at the 9-inch mark, go all the way down. Make sure your paper is lined up with the point in that groove, and then start, okay? But it's, like I said, if you can put some little marks on your board, and you can take these markers off, or these marks off, sometimes like a Clorox wipe will work, nail polish remover, just a tad bit, same thing up here, because I'll put them on with Sharpie. Otherwise, they tend to rub off. You don't want to use a water-based marker because it may rub off on your fingers or your cardstock, get on your project, that sort of thing. So now let's start scoring. And this time I'm going to score at 1/2 inch intervals, okay? 1/2 inch intervals. Again, I'm using the bigger, fatter end of the stylus. Now I'm going to move over. I started at 6. I'm going to move over to the 1/2 inch mark. When you come to this edge, kind of go slowly and sort of get it started right there and then pull down. If you go too fast, it can lift up that paper, or you might accidentally move off that groove. And notice as I'm moving to the outer points, I'm just kind of moving my fingers along with those. I'm going to go over these just one more time. I like to make sure they're well defined. Okay, now again, I could do the same thing from the left side. Start at the middle and work your way out. To make it easier for myself, I do flip my cardstock around. I'm right-handed, so it's easier for me to work on this side than trying to hold my cardstock and work on the left. But you do whatever is comfortable for you. So again, I'm lining that center score line up with the middle, and then I'm just going to move over in 1/2 inch intervals. Now, if you watched Monday's or Tuesday's Facebook Live, it was Tuesday this week, when we made our cards, we had the raised side of the score lines on the front of our cards as a decorative element. For this purpose, we're using the indented side for the top, okay? Now I want to turn, and we're going to, again, score diagonal lines, but starting from the other two opposite corners. And again, I'm going at 1/2 inch intervals. And you can always decide what intervals you would like. If you're not sure, just take a few small pieces of cardstock and try out some different intervals. Okay, I'm going to just go over those one more time to make sure they're nice and sharp, well defined. Flip my cardstock again. And once again, I start at the middle. I can just go over that same line and work my way out at 1/2 inch intervals. You wouldn't necessarily even have to do same intervals in both directions of your paper. So for example, say, here's one. This is 3/4 of an inch intervals, okay? But I could have decided, well, instead of doing 3/4 of an inch this way and 3/4 of an inch across that way, I maybe could have done 3/4 on one side and then 1 inch intervals on the other. See what I'm saying? Okay, so we have this now. So let's go ahead and do some stamping and make our card. Now the artistically inked stamp set is the red rubber. So I really don't need, to use my Stampin' Pierce mat, but sometimes, I do it just because it's there, I'm more comfortable, whatever. But you always want to use that Stampin' Pierce mat as your cushion when you're using photopolymer stamps, okay? I'm going to start with Calypso Coral, and again, I'm going to do some random stamping here. One thing I'll mention too is that for this technique, you're better off using stamps that are not completely solid or not just outlines. All right. So you can see this is in between an outline of a flower and a totally solid flower stamp. Those seem to work best for the faux tile technique. So now I'm just going to stamp some Calypso coral flowers. Again, I like to go off the edges a bit. Going over here, and I'll get one down in this section. And then I'll leave that open because I'm going to use that for my sentiment. Next, I'm using Pretty Peacock. And this is for the leaves. So I'm going to stamp, let's see, let's stamp a couple leaves here. And then I'm going to do a few right here. And how about like this, and maybe like that. But you can see it's just random. You're kind of just eyeballing it, doing what feels right to you. There's not a right or wrong when you're doing random stamping, okay? So do not put pressure on yourself in that regard. And then probably over here a little bit. I'm gonna put another one here. Just a little edge, okay? And I'm going to use one more color, and that is Petal Pink. And if you're wondering where I got this color combination, I'll show you right here in my color coach. Now, if you are not familiar with the Stampin' Up! Color Coach or the Color Coach cards, please go to stampinpiece.com, my website, and put Color Coach or Color Coach cards in the search box, and a post will come up giving you everything you need to know to make a color coach of your own, plus the PDFs to all of the current colors, okay? And I think I have a few past colors too on there, but Stampin' Up! Puts out the PDF for us with the color cards. And then I just put it together like this, and I have it hanging right by my desk here. So it's really convenient. If I'm a little bit stumped with color combinations, I just pull this out. And for some reason, I knew I wanted to use Pretty Peacock today, which is kind of strange that it ends up being the leaf color. But anyways, this is how I got the color combination for this particular card. And that is super handy. I use that color coach a lot. In fact, I have two that I made for myself because the one is packed up with my supplies that I take to different craft retreats, creative escape weekends, that kind of thing, so that I always have one with me, whether I'm crafting at home or away from home. And now we're ready to put our card together. I am going to go ahead and stamp the sentiment now. I'm going to put it on this just because it's easier for me to see the outlines of this banner than when it's the white on the white. Nice. This particular die or a piece of cardstock was cut from the Stylish Shapes dies, okay? Stylish Shapes dies. A definite favorite of mine because there are various shapes and sizes. And I always have a bunch of them already pre-cut. My daughter will do die cutting for me, so I would have her pre-cut a lot of these, and then I just reach into my bin and pull them out to use. So now I'm going to add a little bit of adhesive. Remember not to press hard with your adhesive because you don't want to smooth out all those raised areas, because then the grooves on the front would not be as deep. Okay, you get the idea of a kitchen tile here, maybe with this. And then I'm going to put my sentiment on with a couple of dimensionals. I'll add a piece of white cardstock to the inside, and then I'm going to add an embellishment. Susan Quay, I saw you're supposed to be getting feet of snow over there in Anchorage, Alaska. You're probably used to it, but I'm going to say stay warm and be safe, okay? All right, next I'm going to use a couple of these loose frosted dots. These do not have adhesive on them, okay? And there are 3 colors and there's 3 different sizes. And I'm going to give you a tip. After you've used some of these, don't pull out like one large one and then you spend all your time looking for another large one. There may not be another large one in there, right? If you have a size that you use most often, that can happen. So what I'm going to do is just pull out 2 of these. I think that's the medium size one, to make sure they're the right size. If I can flip this over. Yep, they're the same size. And then I find the easiest way to add them to my card front is just to do a tiny, tiny drop of glue. Whoops, what am I doing? That's the wrong cap. And I'm going to pick it up. If you have tweezers, you might want to use tweezers and just drop it into place that way. But I like to use my take your pick tool. Take your pick tool with the putty end. All right, so that is the second card. I'm going to bring this first one back in here, but then I want to show you something else. So same technique, but we did horizontal and vertical lines. And then on the second card, we did diagonal lines in both directions, okay? What I wanted to show you was here we used 3/4 inch intervals for making our score lines. And at this one, I used 1/2 inch. So I just went ahead and made these so you could see, let's put them here, so you could see the difference more easily, okay? So I have a 1/2 inch, 3/4 inch, and then 1 inch. Sometimes it looks like on camera you can't see both directions of the lines, but they are there. So I find this super helpful, and maybe I can just tuck it away nearby my Simply Scored scoreboard to remind myself of this wonderful technique. And I would say to you, if you're trying it for the first time, try doing it with the different sizes or different intervals for your score lines. And if you've done it before, maybe you have a favorite size you like to do. And I would say be sure to try it both ways, straight across and up and down, or on the diagonals. All right. Who would like to be entered into the drawing to receive one of these handmade cards today? Anybody? Jen, I'm glad you like the cards. I'm going to scroll back really fast and see if there were any questions I missed. Yes, if you missed Tuesday's Facebook Live, be sure and go watch the video of that, because we use that scoreboard for making completely different cards, completely different use of the scoreboard for creating unique cards. And there were 5 different ones I showed in that. All right, if you would like to win one of these cards, type in the comment now, Faux Tile Technique. Faux, F-A-U-X, Tile Technique. Oh, Jen, it's now on your wish list. Deborah, thanks. I'm glad you like it. Thank you, Sharon and Susan. Hey there, Pam Simmons. Len, I'm so glad to know you're going to give this technique a try. So yes, type in the comments now, Faux Tile Technique, and I will draw some winners and get those cards mailed off. And give me a few days and you will see the video, color photos, dimensions, supply list, everything on my blog. I will tell you I'm having company from Friday to Sunday, so I don't think this will go up before Monday, okay? But I'm working on my posts. That's what I was doing all morning long. All right, thank you so much for joining me. I appreciate you, and I'm happy you are part of my Stampin' Peace family. Have a great weekend, and I look forward to seeing you on Monday. Bye-bye.